James Van Der Zee by Josh Romero. James Van Der Zee was a famous African-American photographer who took pictures covering over 60 years. On June 29, 1886, James Van Der Zee was born. James Van Der Zee lived in Lenox, Massachusetts in a 4-bedroom house built by his grandfather. It is in that very house where he learned about photography. Although his parents put him in piano, violin, and painting lessons, he never kept his mind off photography. James's first camera was just $8, but back then that was not considered cheap. For 20 years, James worked 2 jobs in New York. He worked as a waiter by day and a musician by night. But in 1913, all of that changed. He got his first professional photography job in New Jersey. James got married to Kate Brown in the early 1900s and moved to Virginia for a year. His first child, Rachel, was born there but died at age 16. James moved back to New York and had a son but died in his infancy. Kate Van Der Zee left James in 1915. Before the end of World War I, James announced his first studio called Guarantee Photo Studio. Later, James changed the studio's name to GGG Studio for his second wife, Linnea. In his studio, he photographed his Harlem and made it famous in the 1920s and the 1930s. He photographed many celebrities such as Florence Mills, Joe Louis, and Jack Johnson. He also photographed African American citizens in funerals, weddings with dignity and compassion. When home cameras became popular in the 1940s, his business dwindled and supplemented it with mail-order restorations and calendar pictures. But no matter what happened to his business, he kept on loving photography. James was well known in Harlem and people loved his photos of brides, ceremonies, groups, and art. But it was only in 1969, when he was over 80 years old, that he got recognized outside of Harlem. In 1968, at the height of the American Black Consciousness movement, New York's Metropolitan Museum of Art had decided to mount an exhibition called Harlem on My Mind. A young African-American photographer researched the exhibition and happened by Van Der Zee's Harlem studio. Van Der Zee gave him access of more than 100,000 photos that he had signed and dated. James provided 90% of the visual material for the exhibition. He received $3,700 from the museum for the use of his work. At this time, photography was becoming a fine art and Van Der Zee became a cult figure. His reputation in the photography field escalated. In 1969, the American Society of Magazine Photographers honored him. 2 years later, he was elected a Fellow for Life at the Metropolitan Museum. When his wife died, he took it very hard and did not want to take photos anymore. But a young woman came into his life and lifted his spirits up. 2 years later, they got married. After 12 years, he was taking photos again. He took photos of Bill Cosby and Muhammad Ali. In 1978, James published the Harlem Book of the Dead. He also published a biography called The Picture Taken Man. He received 6 honorary doctorates and was honored by President Jimmy Carter. James Van Der Zee died in May 1983 at age 96.